many options in the legal sphere for lawyers. And one role in the legal practice which has been less discussed is that of the in-house counsel, although versatile and broad. Today on Law Express, we take a look at the actual role, duties, and obligations of an in-house counsel in today's ever-evolving space of legal practice. This is Law Express. My name is Noella Seidu. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this break.
Sandra Edujemfi is a private legal practitioner who is dedicated to her profession and finds joy in her hobbies. Sandra can swim, sing in the choir, or read a book when she's not working on legal cases. Samuel Ofosua-Samoa is a highly skilled private legal practitioner passionate about serving clients. When he's not busy representing them, he can often pursue his favorite hobbies, including playing the keyboard, reading, and graphic design. Noella Seidu. She's a private legal practitioner and a consistent member of our 3-lawyer panel on the show every week. She also doubles as the host of the show. She likes to play tennis and read.
So the in-house lawyer, I think another name could be legal counsel, a company lawyer, but I think that is very old-fashioned. But yeah, in-house lawyer or in-house counsel.
And it's misleading as well.
Corporate lawyer, yes, could mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I like to see them as the fireproofing in the building. Mm-hmm. You know, they are the ones who arrive at the crime scene, but usually to prevent the accident from happening. So they are the ones who are analyzing, identifying, and addressing the risk that could cause havoc for a company. That's how I see a legal counsel, in-house counselors.
But oftentimes they are associated with company secretaries. That's also another aspect of in-house lawyers for a number of companies where the lawyer serves as a secretary to the board and performs some regulatory functions to ensure that the company is compliant with the rules and regulations, as well as the company statutes and what have you. So it's for me, I describe an in-house lawyer to be someone who has many hats. Depending on the situation, you would have to wear a different hat for a specific situation. And sometimes it's tough, but you have to be up to the task.
I like to see the in-house counsel as an octopus with many tentacles, and you need to keep your hand on everything at every given point. You are the one who is the firefighter, the first aid administrator.
You could say that.
Yeah, there's just so much.
And I mean, most in-house lawyers are generalists. They do all sorts. If it has to do with labor, they are in the conversation. If it has to do with, procurement, the purchase of goods and services in the company, if it has to do, so there are many facets. There are many facets of it, So it feels like you do every aspect of the law.
Yes.
You have to know every bit. And we don't say, or we don't pride ourselves to know everything. No, I wouldn't say that. But I guess you need to know every aspect that borders on your industry, and the business itself. Yeah. So that is very key.
How does one choose this path? You go to law school, you graduate, you call to the bar. How do you end up a company lawyer or in-house counsel?
I think mostly it's the opportunity. That's what I think. So for someone like me, I had the opportunity to work on secondment at a company as an in-house lawyer. I saw that there was an interest. I saw that I could properly fit into this role, and then I pivoted into another in-house role. Okay. So it's mostly the opportunity. It normally starts with having to be a pupil in a law firm just to learn bits and pieces, but as required also, by the General Legal Counsel. But as you go on, you begin to find your interests, begin to find your niche, what works for you. Some of us, the court does not really work for us. So once we got the opportunity to work in-house, we just grabbed it. Yeah.
I think I'll take it from where your interests are. what your career goals are, and then, what you see yourself doing. So very early on, I knew that my strengths were not for, private practice. I had spent 2 years doing the role, and then I said, okay, I think my strengths will be useful in, working for a company or doing something as a journalist. So that's when I branch off. But we are all lawyers. It's just where your interest is or where your career path leads you. People still want to be in private practice. I know Noella has been in private practice for the last how many years, and she loves it. Some of us who we decided, so it's a choice. It's a matter of choice. And I think in most times or most often, people think that it's less work. That is a very wrong notion. It's or impression. It's a lot of work.
Probably it's more structured in that you have time periods that you need to go in and out. Is that not how it works?
No, I don't think that's how it works. In fact, your time is for the company. So depending on the situation, sometimes some situations require you to be present, even if you are you work within your working hours. It requires you to stay at work and solve the issue because there's a fire. And as firefighters, you have to quench the fire before you move on, else it can spread. And so it's not as structured as is made to look.
Here.
Yes, but you also need to manage your time and manage expectations. If there's a task you can't finish within the reasonable time, you need to inform your colleague or your superior that you would need some time. You would get back to the person rather than take everything up as Superman, maybe. Yeah.
Well,
probably what I would add on to is that I think it's just like any work. You have obligations, you have responsibilities, you have to-do lists, so you manage. But since and it also depends if you're the only lawyer in the company, if you have support, in the team, you have a team, then you can delegate some of the tasks. But as a company lawyer, like every other job, you're in it, and it's not as flexible as it seems.
No.
okay. Let's now go to the actual role. What is the day-to-day expectation of an in-house counsel? Are you supposed to just show up and draw your own plan, or you are pushed based on where the problem is?
Okay, so one thing I always remind myself is to make room for fires, right? Because you can have your own schedule, but based on the situation that comes that very morning, your whole schedule can be messed up. So you always make room for fires. But generally, as a lawyer, my mornings, I look at the task I have ahead. Generally, the broad goal to see what I have to do and then break it down into very little tasks and focus. I try to delegate, yes, but most of the tasks require my attention. For instance, if we are dealing with a contract that has some serious value, you wouldn't expect to simply delegate that to some other person. You want to pay particular attention to make sure that you are protecting the company, you are mitigating the risk associated with it. Quite apart from contracts, we also deal with compliance. Yeah. And for compliance, for me, it's in twofold. One is when they ask you questions or they require your assistance. Some other time you have to go into the business and check whether indeed they are being compliant. And depending on the task I have at hand, I would know when is how to balance. Yes. Another aspect has to do with advisory, normally with HR issues, and that one comes as and when because of for where I work, we deal with over 4,000 employees, so the HR issues are very prominent, and so
yes. So with HR, I mean, you're going to start from when you actually employ people, vetting them.
No, I don't. You see, because we have different functions in the company, HR takes that function, but sometimes it has to do with advice on the collective agreement, advice on discipline, or dismissing somebody.
What about drafting the appointment letters and all of that? Is that a
Normally
function of the HR or legal?
So normally we assist in preparing a draft to make sure that the terms that the company wants to offer the employees properly captured, but then HR takes on. I think that's one way our work becomes easier, when we have precedents and drafts for
You
the
set up some parameters
Exactly.
to operate within.
exactly, and then
Okay.
allow the other team members to take up from them.
Again, it's back to what people assume that in-house counsels do. They think that probably all we do is contract drafting or maybe litigation, but that really forms just about 20% of the real job. So depending on the industry that you are in, there are regulatory like challenges or compliance issues that you have to navigate. There's also things around IP, safeguarding the assets of the company. If you have trademarks, you need to protect it. So you're doing work around that. And then someone also mentioned a bit about compliance. So here it's not just regulatory compliance. The company itself could have their own policies. You facilitate the trainings, ensure that the entire business practice is aligned to that compliance policy, so there's no breach. It's also about stakeholder management, stakeholders internally and stakeholders outside. Because for a private practice lawyer, your stakeholder is your clients, but here your clients are the HR employee, somebody from procurement, somebody from operations, your MD, your finance. So those are, so you manage all that stakeholder, discussions. And then apart from that, the external, because you're the lawyer of the company. So, you have to interface with external stakeholders, government relations, and all of that. So, and then corporate governance, ensuring that the entire business practice, just aligns with the law. So there's quite a lot in there.
At internal governance policies to ensure that they are compliant with state law and company policy.
Yes.
And also to ensure that the entire end-to-end business, the services, the practices, they are doing the right thing. Because you also don't want a situation where, because of ignorance, they are doing the different things. So there, legal comes in facilitating the trainings, ensuring that people know the legalities of this and that. So, like I mentioned, we want to be part. So if you're an in-house, you're part of the project management team, so that you're there at the beginning, when they are discussing the issues, and then you can spot all the legal risk, before
So
the
risk
exact
management.
risk management. That is top for an in-house counsel. Risk management, we do that quite
So
every
you
day.
need to be like a prophetess,
Not necessarily.
look ahead
Yes.
to see what could be a challenge in the future.
That's true.
Or you could put it that way. Yes.
And while still managing the now, the problems of today, and perhaps the remnants of those that came from yesterday. That's a lot.
It's a never-ending job.
What about dispute resolution?
Okay, so that's one aspect where, as a lawyer, even though you are a lawyer, people expect that you are ready for a fight. You try to avoid a fight if it's possible. And so sometimes, as in-house lawyers, when there is a dispute, we take the first step to see if there can be a solution.
So, you run into town with this dispute thing en bloc. Let's break it down.
Okay.
There are disputes within the company, which is departmental disputes, employer or management and staff disputes. Then there are disputes that occur between the entity and other external.
Yes.
So let's look at them, in that manner.
Sure.
Okay. So internally, normally, the disputes between the employer management, and then we have unions within
Yes.
our workspace. And normally, as a lawyer, as in-house lawyer, you would want to, even though you are part of the management, you'd also want to give.
You're also an employee.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and so
it has to favor.
and so
Yeah.
you would have to open up to employee. You have to be open for them to bring their issues to you to address, and that's one thing. You have to be in the middle and try to strike a balance, because you have to hear both sides.
How do you build trust in this situation? Because you are part of management.
Yes.
And you're an employee trying to let them see that, look, I'm one of you. How are you able to get, especially the employees, to come along with you? Because they'll go like, you're privileged and you are head. So you must be on the side of management.
I think for me, how I've managed to, maneuver this scenario is the law is there, black and white, and the spirit is also there. So oftentimes when these issues come and you're trying to resolve it, you let especially the disadvantaged, person, not the company. You let them know that this is what the law says. It's not like somebody is, trying to cheat you or, and in the end, it's the business objective that matters. Does it align with the business objective? If it's not illegal, then we need to make. So it's a balancing act, but you just let them know that, nobody is trying to, cheat the system or make you feel like you're not being appreciated or anything.
Okay, let's look at departmental conflicts. So there's a policy, probably it could be a thing of procurement, and it's about who is going to benefit, which department needs it more. How do you handle that?
For interdepartmental issues, normally you have to provide some guidance or perspective, because you are also a department on your own, and so it's not advisable to join in that fight. But it's also good to provide some guidance, some perspective as to what is important, what the business goal is, and perhaps draw the attention to the fact that we need to focus on that rather than be pulling, having a tug of war in the workplace. So normally you just advise, give a parameter for them to understand the basics, but then you just stay out of it if you can.
I think so. I mean, we don't go in to say do this or do that. We let the business know these are the risks, this is the opportunity, and then you allow them to take the decision. That's how most of the time it works. But in oftentimes, sometimes you have to decide for them when nobody wants to take it. Yes. So that's how we come in as and when.
So now
we're the middle people.
Okay, let's the fixers.
Yeah.
Let's rub in the aspect of company against external parties.
For that, like I said, normally when the dispute arises, it's oftentimes there's a threat of legal action. Yes. So you'd have to assess your rights, your interests, and see whether it would benefit the company to pursue a legal action with the external company. Yeah. Normally it's not, because of the cost, because of the time, because of the reputation of the company. And so if you can, as an in-house lawyer, you try to, engage the external party. Normally it will be a party that you've been in business with for some time. So you would want to leverage on that goodwill to see if you can have a middle ground, just so you can continue the business relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's assuming you're not able to douse the fire. What's next?
Some disputes are inevitable. You just have to take the fight. Yeah. But I'll raise my hand. I haven't been to court in forever. So then you would have
to fix your challenges.
Because there are too many internal challenges,
yes.
and then you can't, take
add
on
that one to it.
So we have external solicitors that we work with, and work with closely to handle the cases for us. But before it does, and like Samuel mentioned, I mean, there's brand reputation. You also don't want to be known for that, so you try to manage it before it goes. Sometimes it just escalates, and then it has to be like that, because you also have to protect the business interest.
It's the business interest first.
Yes.
And it doesn't even matter if you lose money. Once you have a bigger goal and that is your aim, you let go of the other things.
That's it.
Yes. Sometimes a dispute is not even about money. It's just about emotions, ego.
Yeah.
And
but
so
I think setting the facts right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is most important in such a situation. But at the same time, try to keep the relationship if you can, unless it's not possible, and then we step into the fight.
Yeah.
Let's look at the day-to-day advice. Who are you advising really? You earlier on mentioned that it's the various departments are your clients. So is it memos that come in requesting or soliciting advice? And how does that play out?
It's a plethora of many things. So usually it's through mails. I don't do memo. I mean, I think it's a public sector. I don't know the last time I saw a memo. So usually it comes through emails or working in your office, because it's business partnering. So you expect that they could just walk in and ask a question, or is the project steering committee that you are in. So they come in all forms. But the good thing is there are responses for each question that may come up, or there's somebody readily available to answer that question. So I have people coming into my office or through emails or meetings.
I think this is a great time to take a quick break. Stay tuned, don't go away. This is Law Express.
So on the question of compliance,
Yes.
just to comment that compliance, I mean, it's forms like, probably like, sums up most of the work that we do. Because I mentioned earlier that, you know, you are the crime scene, but you are usually stopping, you know, the crime from happening. And for us as a multinational, because I work for a multinational company, they have their own internal policies on compliance, you know, around bribery and corruption, around fraud, money laundering, conflicts of interest. And
Okay, so can we look at compliance in terms of compliance with internal policies? Then we look at compliance with regulatory policies.
okay.
I mean, and that could be employment law and other industry-specific regulations. So let's start with what you were talking about, which is the internal policies.
Okay.
These are set down by the companies themselves
Yeah.
for their staff
Yeah.
and
I don't know about local companies. I'm sure they do have policies
Yes,
as
they
well.
do.
But for multinationals, the standards are pretty high.
okay.
And you even realize that their standards are higher than the local laws. You
Wow.
know, exactly. We are not punishing enough on bribery and corruption. When you come to a multinational like where I work, facilitation fee or, you know, tipping
Tips,
somebody,
yeah.
it's a no-go. And, you know, I mean, coming into that industry and coming into that business, you need to know that, let the people who you work with know that is a no-go. So you do that through training, several trainings, making sure it's top of mind for everybody that within our business practice, we cannot breach such, you know, policies.
But one thing that we learn from early stages, if you can, avoid saying no. And so even if they are going wayward, you have to give them alternatives to let them know that instead of doing something which is contrary to our internal policies, these are the options that you can take. And oftentimes it may not seem good, but at least you have options, and it's better than going contrary to your internal policy.
Okay.
And just to comment on that, you know, the perception that lawyers are blockers, you know, they are not
Killjoys.
Yeah, exactly. They'll come and say, don't do this, don't do that. No. I mean, if you're in-house counsel, you need to find a way. And most of the time, it leads to innovation.
Yeah.
Because you need to find a way around it. They don't want to come and hear, we can't do this. How do we do it, but in compliance with the law? So that's what we are there for. You find that you get the guys to do very interesting things without breaking the law.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Yeah, we make things happen.
Yeah.
What about other policies in terms of staff or employee relationships?
So for us, we have collective agreements.
Perfect.
And for that, we expect that management will comply. At the same time, we expect that the employees will comply. And so sometimes there are issues, there are disputes around the meaning of those provisions. And that's when you come in to give an interpretation. You come in, sometimes you have to, the interpretation is not favorable. And you know, because the union,
They have the numbers.
yes, so they would want to occasionally scare you, but you need to stamp your feet on the ground, let them know that this is the interpretation. We understand your consent, but you also have an opportunity to have this provision changed when you have an opportunity to negotiate the collective agreement again. And that aspect of it, because every time they would want to whisper strike, but you know that they also have an interest in the company.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why they are still working with the company. And so you'd have to find a way to rope them in and get them on board.
De-escalate things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How about external compliance? You're looking at regulatory agencies and their requirements.
The requirements, yeah.
How
So I
do
think
you
most of it also depends
get
on the
approach?
industry that you are in. So for a FMCG company like ours, we have the FDA, we have the Ghana Standards Authority, oftentimes around environmental issues, we have the EPA. And it's for us to know, what the laws or the principles are, let's say for advertising. And for me, how I've been able to manage this is to build very good relationships with the FDA, for instance, and then have them train, your people internally that these are the advertising rules and these are how FDA expect us to advertise our products, for instance. So just keeping, close relationship. That's I talked about stakeholder management. So having that close relationship with these regulatory agencies, because honestly, these regulators, they are just doing their jobs.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you would think that they are there to make your life difficult and all of that.
Until there's a problem,
exactly.
and you realize that they've been saving you all that while.
And they are protecting consumers.
Yes.
Because you don't want businesses to also take advantages of consumers. So I guess they are doing their job, and we need to support them. So we work hand in hand with them.
One thing that works well for me is checklists. So because I know I can't be at everywhere at the same time,
I love that.
we have checklists where the various departments have they can go through to make sure that they are compliant on those checklists. You'd have to receive them at the end of the day and vet. You can also have the opportunity to get the source document and then look through to be certain that they are compliant with those regulations. It's sometimes they try to hide stuff. I know it's not their fault. They don't want to look bad, but you have to fish.
Yeah.
Yes, you really have to fish. Once you sense that something is wrong, you really have to go to the bottom of it, because normally when there is a non-compliance issue, it comes with huge repercussions and
the entire company.
Exactly.
And the brand, it hits the
Yeah.
brand.
Exactly, and that is one principal role of an in-house lawyer. So you don't want to neglect that part of it, even if it is unsavory, it's unpalatable. You have to do it regardless.
Let's look at this issue of compliance. I know that for even the average business operator in Ghana, you normally know the first tier entities you need to meet their rules. So for instance, if you're in a food and beverage industry, you know that Ghana Standards Authority and Food and Drugs Authority, definitely.
Yep.
Probably Ministry of Health, you may have some dealings there. If you're an exporter, Ghana Export Promotion Center and all of those. So you try to satisfy all these people, you settle in only to be hit by all these local assembly laws and regulations that you never knew about, which are mostly not publicized like the other ones.
Yeah.
So you're left wondering, is this even legit? Because today this task force comes in with their demands. The next day another shows up. Then just when you think all is stable, fire service walks in and they want to check if you have all the firefighting equipment there.
Yeah, so where I work, GOPDC is located within a traditional community, and for those kind of communities, the local assembly plays a very prominent role in some sense of compliance. And so very often we have to deal with the municipal assemblies, the district directorate of health, and what have you. We've had incidents where they have come with their task force to stop certain incidents based on certain bylaws which we don't know about. Exactly, yes. And they normally do that. My understanding is they normally do that because they want you to come to the table
not even
and recognize
writing letters.
No.
Yes.
And I also think that, I don't know, the bylaws or the enacting of the bylaws has given them a lot of powers.
Exactly.
So it's all about managing the relationship, and because I also don't want to fight them. We are in their community and their municipal assembly. We want to manage them. So, and oftentimes, as part of our stakeholder management, at the Christmas, we'll try and bring you gifts because you're in our catchment area. So some of these things, I'll get corporate affairs, come and have conversations with them. Yes, we may not be aware of this issue. Now you brought it to our attention. We'll quickly, try and then close any gaps. So that's how this relationship, we just manage the relationship as it comes. But they have very wide powers.
Yes, you really can't fight the local assembly.
I wouldn't dare.
Let's look at the issue of disciplinary actions.
My favorite.
I know HR is the frontliner here,
Yes.
but they are limited in terms of disciplinary actions and the processes and steps to that, because their job is to hire and finally sign that letter that fires the person. But there should be some compliance with our labor laws and regulation as you go through these proceedings. How do you juggle this? Because here you are, an in-house lawyer who has formed some bonds with people, being human, and now one of your friends that you have lunch with is in trouble, and you need to, follow procedure, due process in addressing this issue in a way that is fair, but still protects the corporate interest. How do you juggle that?
So for discipline, that is a very tough aspect. Like you said, you have people you work with one day, and the next they have a disciplinary issue and your opinion is needed. I keep a level head. I think that's the most important thing, because you have to align with the interest of the company, regardless of whether the person is your colleague or not. And one other thing that we strive to do is that we are with HR all along the way. So there's a process, there's a procedure, but always keep me in copy. So that if there's something that you do that is wrong, we can correct it before the very end. Because anytime there's a disciplinary issue, especially one that could eventually lead to termination or dismissal, you also have to think about the fact that it could also move ahead into, let's say, with the National Labour Commission or eventually to the courts. So you'd want to be sure that the internal procedure that we've laid out for the disciplinary process is followed to the letter. You want to be sure that the Labour Act is also complied with, so that you make sure that at the end of it all, you are fair. You are fair to both sides, the company as well as the individual, and also you avoid the risk of having to spend considerable amount of time with the Labour Commission or at the courts.
But I'm also of the school of thought that the HR professional is an expert. So I'm not there to make all the decisions for the HR experts. I will guide the HR experts in their decision making. And aside that, there's a policy, there's a disciplinary policy. So it's expected that the process will be complied with. And most often times, they do. It is complied with. We only come in where there is issue of interpretation or somebody doesn't want to understand something, then we come in and explain. But I think it's pretty simple. For those issues that we are not able to solve, yes, then we come in or we get guidance from external parties.
We sampled people's opinion on today's topic, the streets of Accra. We're going to take a listen, we react to those, and then we move into entitlement arising out of familiarity at the workplace.
In-house counsel are lawyers for a company, and what they do is to improve the services of a company.
So house counsels are basically company lawyers who deliberate on the legal affairs of a company and also ensure the company goes by the rules and laws of the state. That is what I know.
House counsels, for what I know, is for them to defend their companies. No matter what, whether there's a situation in the company, they are the ones to defend. They are more like lawyers defending their clients in cases. So they're also to defend the company no matter what the situation is.
Some roles of a house counsel is basically to advise executive members of the organization on existing laws, new laws, and probably other laws that has the tendency to impact the company. And another function I think they play is to also oversee some duties of the legal matters concerning the organization.
I think they seem to have a fair idea as to what we do, which is good. Yes.
Yeah, I saved that they're calling you house counsels.
That's new. Maybe we'll add it to our names as well. But yes, I think it's a good attempt at understanding the kind of work we do. If you listen to each of them, you see that they talk about various aspects of what we do. It's not just one, but it cuts across the training, the enforcement, defending the company and all that.
You can't get it wrong, really.
Yeah.
I mean, everything a lawyer does, an in-house counsel can do.
Yes.
I'm particularly excited. Somebody knows what we are doing, and that we are not just drafting or reviewing contracts.
I mean, I
Or
know
sitting in
in-house,
meetings.
Exactly, it's
but
much
I know
more than
in-house
that.
counsels who still go to court every now and then. They pick up a few, not
Yes,
too many.
not too many. Yeah.
And then when it gets overwhelming and it's affecting the day-to-day administrative roles and other compliance, then they outsource. But then there are a few
I think if you have other lawyers, then you have the luxury of
Yes.
But
Yes.
for a solo lawyer, no, thank you.
If there is a dispute, it has to go out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
regardless,
No,
even if it's
it-
arbitration.
Yes.
It has to go out. We will provide the support. But
Okay.
the thing is, if you don't pay particular attention to that dispute, you could easily lose that case. And the repercussions is even much greater. So you don't take chances. It's better to get a second opinion, an outside opinion,
Yeah.
someone who is focused on your problem whilst you deal internally with your issues. If you try, it would not end well at all.
Interesting. So, on to entitlement arising out of familiarity. I mean, you are the lawyer in-house, you are the octopus resident firefighter and fixer. Then somebody's wife has a problem, and then they think that they can carry it from home, and because they know you in the office, they bring it to you, right? Their neighbor has an immigration problem, and since you are the octopus in the office, they're like, oh, she can handle it. I know a lawyer. Then they dump it at your desk.
So what I normally do, perhaps maybe it's wrong, but what I do is I at least give them the opportunity to talk and then refer them to a colleague that
Okay.
they can speak to a colleague lawyer. What I won't do is to take up the case and do it even on the blind side of the company. I don't think that it's fair to the company, yes, and it's ethical as well. I don't think that
Unethical.
yes. So sometimes they just want someone to listen to them because they perhaps don't even understand the legal issues involved, or they don't know which lawyer they could speak to. And because we have colleagues who might be experts in such fields, once you hear them, you just move them to a colleague who can take that up.
And for me, I think it also depends, right? It depends on what it is and what time it even comes. So if it's general advice that you need, I'm happy to do that based on relationship and then all of that, because I mean, yeah, you're in the office and they are your colleagues. So a little advice here and there, I won't be able to do any case for you because I'm not going to court. I can refer you to somebody like,
Doesn't
so
have to be court.
It doesn't, or
mean,
they'll
the
come to you,
person
say, draft
immigration.
draft
Yeah, draft a
a
contract
tenancy
for me.
agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that all the time. But yeah. So, I mean, you can't unassess things all the time, but there are some that you will do it for. So,
Okay, so on this note, we'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we're going to attempt to answer questions coming in by way of social media. Stay tuned. This is still Law Express. Don't go away.
My name is Alassane. I work in the Human Resources Department of a large company in Accra. How can in-house counsel assist HR departments in handling employment law matters such as contract negotiations, employee disputes, and compliance with labor regulations?
At some point, HR has to take up some of the compliance rules. For instance, paying SNIT,
Yeah.
ensuring that the employee is protected in under the labor laws. The HR has to take the first step. Like Sandra said, the HR is an expert. He's an expert in his field, so he should at least be able to take the first step in dealing with these compliance issues. But on a broad level, legal still has to step in. And in some aspect of contract negotiation, for us, because we have a union that is affiliated to mother union, we normally have what we call a salary negotiation committee.
Okay.
Yes, and for that, legal is always a member of that committee. And normally, legal also leads the negotiations when the MD or CEO is not available. So legal is very much in the center of contract negotiation when it comes
Legal
to
is everywhere.
legal is everywhere.
you can't help it. We are at the very center of salary negotiations when it comes to that. Employee disputes, like I said earlier, employee dispute is always one that you would have to balance. You have to find a balance between the two. You're an employee, at the same time you are management. And so you need to create that atmosphere that allows the employee to be able to approach you to seek redress. Because if the employee is not satisfied, it could also escalate into a legal dispute. So at least you should have your doors open to, at the very least, listen to what the employee has to say and see if there's a way around it. And sometimes it helps because there are issues that can be easily solved, but sometimes it goes beyond that and there's nothing we can do about that.
My name is Papayao, and I'm from Idum. I'm currently working as an in-house counsel for a multinational corporation with operations. With the increasing complexity of legal matters in our industry, what are some of the effective strategies that in-house counsel can implement to stay updated with local and international laws relevant to our business? Additionally, how can in-house counsel proactively mitigate legal risks and ensure compliance across different jurisdictions?
I think I'll take that question from the second part about how we are mitigating it. So, like I earlier mentioned, it's about risk and opportunities. That's all we always do. Navigating the business practices, seeing where there are gaps, and then trying to close it. But in how to, keep abreast with what's going on. I mean, for lawyers, there are various ways. We have the Ghana Bar Association. We keep abreast, with all
CLEs,
the new, the continuous learning legal
yeah.
education coming up. Then and there's also, aside Parliament, getting all the laws from Parliament as well.
The Assembly Press,
Assembly
paying
Press,
attention there.
Just keeping updated on what's happening on that scene from time to time. And then industry-wise, there are industry associations. And depending on the industry that you are in, you have like Association of Ghana Industries, you are in there. So usually before some of these policies or laws are passed, the companies would have had, foresight about it.
You just have to have your eyes open and try to go to industry events. You network, you get new ideas, you get to know what's happening everywhere else. And also try to maintain a great relationship with the regulators. When there's something new, they would send emails.
And usually they do.
Yeah,
They do.
They will announce, so keep abreast with current happenings.
And for FDA like this, I know they do very well with forums. They will invite their companies for these stakeholder meetings before these things. So.
And then they would name those who are doing great in the industry and present them as an example for others to follow. I see they do great there.
Yes. But one very basic thing I do is to listen to the news. Once you follow the news, it's also a source of new development in the industry. Sometimes it may not have the quality that you would expect, but at least once you get wind of something happening within, you would at least make the effort to learn about it.
Then the first part.
So, mitigating risk, once you've identified or analyzed what the issues are, so you implement the actions with the internal stakeholder depending on which phase it borders on. So, for instance, data privacy. The Data Protection Commission now is clamping down on, how businesses are dealing with people's personal data. So, for a company like ours, I would have done a risk assessment per the Data Protection Act to see where the gaps are in our processes, and then we'll have a roadmap or an action map, and then put timelines to close these gaps. So that's ordinarily on a normal day, that's how we do our risk assessment. And risk assessment is every day when you're in-house counsel.
You have to be alert. Yes. And one thing about risk assessment is you need to understand the business you are in. Because if you understand the business, you understand the risk involved, and in that way you can be able to contribute to ensure that the risk is mitigated. So you need to relate well with your team members to understand their needs, understand the nature of their work, what goes into their work. You need to pay attention during meetings. Sometimes you sit in meetings and they run through their KPIs, and then you know that, okay, there's a risk here, there's something they need to consider, and that also helps. So a good understanding of the business is key to mitigating risk.
I tend to categorize risk in different ways. Okay. So there's an obvious clear-cut risk, and something in the gray area, which is the possibility, especially where you're not sure of regulation entirely. You would realize that there are gaps in some rules and regulations and compliance requirements in a way that doing something may not be illegal, but it still would be risky. So that is another risk that you have to act as a soothsayer to go ahead of, and probably use how other countries, especially if it's a multinational company, how they approach those. You try to use that until your country catches up.
So, you know, what is, when you're in a multinational company, you have, you know, other businesses in other markets. And the good thing about these relationship or this connection is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, somebody would have already found a way around this issue that, so it's just about, you know, reaching out, has this happening? So that's in the legal network or in a different country. Has this happened to you and how do you do it? And then for the company where I work, we have these quarterly meetings for in-house, like the lawyers in the business every
to
quarter.
Report on what challenges they've had.
If it's about
areas.
IP, you know, if it's about antitrust, you know. So even though yes, Ghana doesn't have antitrust laws, but you'll be surprised. We have to abide. We have our own internal antitrust policy.
Okay.
And I know that with the AFTA, they have their own competition law and all of that. So for companies like ours, you know, our sales guys, our procurement people would have been trained on some of these general practices so that they are aware of it. So that's how we gather, you know, information, gather expertise from other countries. Yeah.
Risk may not necessarily be legal, so it may not be illegal, but it might have some impact on the company. Something that your something that your team members may not be seeing. So even if it's illegal, you have to ask the question: what are the other risks involved? For instance, reputation. For instance, if you know that the action that the company is taking would have issues with the community that they are living in, you need to advise them on that. One thing is you don't work as strictly legal. Yes, you work as a business partner. And so the fact that it's illegal does not mean that if there are other risks involved, you can't point that out. And that also helps because you bring them back, you give them a perspective as to focusing on the business objectives.
Hello, Noella. I'm Nene from Ada. I'm a business owner running a small fashion boutique. I've heard about in-house counsel, and I don't know if it's something my business needs. Could you explain the benefits of having an in-house counsel for a small business like mine, and what specific legal matters or risks they could help me navigate in the fashion industry in Ghana?
So is it a company that has been set up?
Small business.
For that,
we don't know what it really is. I don't know if it's small in terms of number of staff, but with a huge budget, or it's small in terms of overheads.
Yes, I think it would be helpful to have a retainer, right? To have outside counsel or to have lawyers advise you on very specific needs that you may have. In-house counsel is only
employed full-time.
Yes,
as part of your establishment.
Yes, and they work across departments. So if you're a small business without any department, it's really not helpful to have in-house counsel. You still need a lawyer, but not someone who would be working full-time with you. You can get retainers, you can get opinions, advice from external counsels who may also understand your business once you give them the opportunity.
I would not discourage them from having an in-house counsel because I don't know where the support is. I don't know the direction of the business. Yeah, it's small now, but do they have plans to scale up? Are they trying to collaborate internationally? But yes, it's great to present the option of an external solicitor or lawyer who can advise based on your needs, your unique needs. We let you see all the options and then you pick what works best for you. Perhaps they just have plans of scaling up and all of that,
And probably also to encourage startups or, you know, very small companies that, you know, I mean, you don't go to the lawyer when the issues is at the end stage where it's burning. You know, it's very advisable to have, you know, lawyers advise you. Let's say you go for a loan or, you know, you've entered into a contract, an agreement with somebody. Sometimes they take it for granted and then they just, you know, try and put it, but invite a lawyer in. I mean, you can get somebody at a minimal fee and then help you, navigate some of these issues. And it's very important.
I always say that a lawyer is most needed when all is well.
Well, yeah.
Because you tend to gloss over things that ordinarily you should pay attention to because all is peaceful.
Yep.
And then when there's a big problem and you can't agree, how do you now navigate?
You call in the lawyer.
That will be too late.
Exactly.
Yes. And there's a growing niche of startup lawyers to assist these kind of businesses. So I think it's something that they can also consider, because startup lawyers might have that attention or understanding of your needs and your need to expand or your need to raise capital for your business. That's helpful. At the very least, you should have a lawyer advise you, regardless whether in-house or external. You should have a lawyer.
Or a friend lawyer.
There we go again. You are encouraging entitlement.
No, I'm not. Trust me.
Finally, I would like us to look at tax compliance. Most lawyers are not tax lawyers in Ghana. We have some people who have carved a niche. Most in-house lawyers are not tax experts. How do you navigate this special list area?
So my role simply is to identify the laws, to ensure that the finance department is also abreast with the new tax laws. Tax changes almost every year, and every year there are new taxes. We have to be on the same page, at least, that we know that these taxes are in force and that we are applying them within our business. We have tax experts who are employed in the business who deal particularly with the nitty-gritties. You just provide guidance and ensure that we are compliant with the laws as we have them.
How do you do this?
For us, I think the interesting thing is at least you have the finance team very interested in the updated tax laws and all of that. So once we catch wind that there's a new tax law going to be passed, then we know how to align. But usually we work with the tax company. Who are the expertise.
So you outsource the role?
You outsource the tax, But sometimes I've seen companies where they have a tax expert or tax manager in-house. So it depends on the structure. But even if you have a tax manager in-house, you still have, an outsourced
it's
tax.
Like having an
in-house counsel and then still having
an external
solicitor.
Yes, we do have an external auditors that also assist with tax. Yes.
I mean, you deal with a lot of budgets, like big budgets, so you need all the help you can. I mean, we have only scratched the surface on this topic, considering that there is more in this tentacle-full role as an in-house counsel. But our job today was to stimulate the conversation, see if we get more lawyers interested in that space, and to get them to know that it's not all boring, it's not routine.
No,
not at all.
Still,
there's always an exciting.
There's no day which is the same.
Yes, and there's so much to do with it. It's been great having you both as co-panelists. Viewers, I was joined today by Sandra Edijemfi and Samuel Ofosu Asamoah. My name is Noella. This has been our show on in-house counsels. This was Law Express. Goodbye.